trees in front of her. Zen became super uneasy. She felt like someone was watching her. Then her dogs started to growl and bark. They stood in front of her, protecting her. A twig snapped and her dogs lost it. She had never seen them act this way. Then, a voice called out from the trees. It was her mother's. "Zenny?" the voice said. "Zenny? Mom?" Zen wanted to be comforted by this. She should have been comforted by this, but she couldn't. That was her nickname and that was her mother's voice, but it sounded off. It's like when you pull on a record and the words are slow and mumbled.
"Come here,"
the voice shouted again. That was definitely not Zen's mother. She began to run, her dogs barking the entire way. But she stopped when she saw those familiar sticks. She had run the wrong way. "Zenny, Zenny, come here. Come here, Zenny. Zenny, come here." The voice had followed her. She took off in the other direction, not stopping for a second until finally, her house! She ran inside and after she caught her breath, told her mother what happened. She assured her that it was probably just the wind howling in the trees and nothing more. It wasn't until years later, after Zen and her family had moved from that house, that Zen decided to ask her mother about that day. "Mom, do you remember our old house and that day when I heard your voice in the forest?" Oh, yeah. Her brow furrowed as she contemplated her next words. I guess you're old enough now to know the truth. The truth about what? When you told me about the voices in the trees, I didn't want to scare you at the time because you were so young. That house was on Native American land. I called a medicine man to come and cleanse our house and property. When I told him your story, he said that you were very lucky to be alive. You had narrowly escaped a Wendigo. A Wendigo is a demonic spirit that possesses humans and turns them into cannibals. They have an insatiable hunger for human flesh and will stop at nothing to get it. Wendigos are vicious, but also very cunning and tricky. With their heightened sense of hearing, they can pick up the panicked heartbeat of a lost human from miles away. Then, with their long legs and supernatural speed, they run over to their prey and begin their twisted game. Sometimes they taunt their victims with their deep growls. Other times, they'll mimic human voices of loved ones to trick you into coming closer.
Come here.
According to legend, a Wendigo is nearly impossible to escape. Once it's made you its target, you're as good as dead. To this day, Zen still can't believe that she is one of the lucky few to have escaped the clutches of a Wendigo. Thank you to Zen for sharing this encounter. Hey, I'm Sapphire. Want to hear something scary?
Welcome back. As a thank you for helping us reach over 900,000 subscribers, I hope you enjoy this special new episode while we continue to work on some exciting new projects for something scary. So make sure you subscribe to Snarls and the bell is turned on for notifications. Have you ever had an out-of-body experience or slipped into a very realistic daydream once in a while? 15-year-old Lizanne has, multiple times. But they're more than just daydreams. She believes that someone is trying to take over her body. The earliest incident Lizanne can remember was when she was 8 years old. She was cast in her school's musical about vampires. One of the musical numbers required them to form a pyramid, sort of like what cheerleaders do. Lizanne was on the second to the bottom row. She had never done anything like this before and was incredibly nervous. And then, Lizanne couldn't move. She was paralyzed. Her entire body was frozen in place. She couldn't open her mouth to call for help or wave her hand for someone's attention. Then everything began to fade to black. Lizanne was alone, until a young boy appeared in front of her. He had short blonde hair and clean, semi-formal clothes. He held his hand out, motioning for Lizanne to come to him. She had never seen this boy, but felt compelled to go to him. No longer paralyzed, Lizanne stood up and ran towards the little boy. and then found herself back in the auditorium. She crashed onto the ground and rolled off the stage, her fellow cast members following the same fate. High-pitched screams filled the auditorium. Lizanne tried to stand up, but realized very quickly that her arm was broken. "Are you okay? How did this happen?" Lizanne's mom, Melanie, asked as she drove her daughter to the hospital. "I fell during rehearsal," she said, leaving out a very important detail. Lizanne continued to have these strange blackouts and thought it would be best to not let her mother worry, so she kept them to herself. When she was 13, she was waiting at the train station alone. It was a hot day and she had a tendency to get overwhelmed by heat. A train sped by and she was engulfed in a cloud of hot air. She started to feel faint. Then everything around her turned black. She was back in that familiar void. That same blonde boy appeared a few dozen feet in front of her. "What are you doing over there? Get over here. The train's coming, hurry." In a daze, Lizanne began to walk towards the boy until she felt someone grab her from the back. Lizanne snapped back into reality just as a train whipped past, narrowly missing her nose. "Are you trying to get yourself killed? Pay attention." The summer after that incident, Lizanne and her friends were hanging out at the nearby lake. They were laying out on their towels by the water and joking around. And then her friends said a word that triggered something inside of Lizanne. She doesn't remember exactly what her friends said, but she remembers her body just stopped working. She closed her eyes and saw a face with no eyes and no nose, just a smile, like the Cheshire Cat, but much more evil. She reopened her eyes and found herself in the middle of the lake. Lizanne didn't know how to swim. She started flailing her arms and legs around in a panic, trying to stay above water. Her friend jumped in and was able to pull her safely ashore. After everyone had calmed down, Lizanne turned to her friends. "What just happened?" You started mumbling really weird things, and then you stood up, turned around, and screamed at us, and said that you were going to kill myself. And then you jumped into the lake. I don't remember any of that. These blackouts were starting to get much more serious. Lizanne had kept these incidences from her mother because she didn't want her to worry, but something very strange was happening and Lizanne had to know why. "Mom, I have to tell you something." Lizanne began to tell her mom about all the blackouts, and her eyes became wide with terror. Lizanne thought it was because she didn't believe her. They sat in silence for a few moments. Melanie took a deep breath. "I was right. I was right this whole time." Melanie had sworn that she wouldn't tell her daughter about what happened when she was younger. But after hearing the fear in her daughter's voice, she knew it was time. When Lizanne was small, she was very close with her great-grandfather on her mother's side, which is her Indonesian side. Indonesians believe in the concept of Ru. It is the spirit that continues to exist long after the physical body has gone. It is far beyond human understanding and a very ingrained belief in Indonesia. So Lizanne's great-grandfather told her stories of Ru to help her cope with the fact that he would physically be leaving her soon. And that day came when Lizanne turned 4. Despite the comforting stories her great-grandfather told her, she was still upset and missed him dearly. Melanie began to worry about her daughter's well-being, as she noticed that she was more emotionally closed off than before. So every night, she would take a peek inside her room to check on her. Most nights, she'd be muttering gibberish through tears under her breath. But some nights, she wasn't in her bed because she was sleepwalking. There are a few times when Melanie walked into Lizanne's room to find her sitting on the ground, surrounded by her dolls and stuffed animals. She'd be having a full-on conversation with them while her eyes were shut. While it was always a bit of a shock, nothing compared to the time when she found Lizanne standing at her open bedroom window, reaching in front of her crying.
"Grandpa!"
Melanie rushed over to her daughter and pulled her from the ledge. "Lizanne, what were you doing?"
"I was going to Grandpa."
While Melanie was incredibly superstitious, Lizanne's father, Ryan, was not. Melanie insisted that they take her to a priest to make sure something otherworldly was not going on. But Ryan shut the idea down. Instead, he took her to a psychiatrist who explained that Lizanne's behavior was completely normal for a young, grieving child. So after that visit, Lizanne's parents agreed to never bring this up again. Without telling Ryan, Melanie took Lizanne to the nearby church. They told the priest what had been going on, and he explained the situation. When Lizanne's great-grandfather died, she became susceptible to spiritual attack. The Rue of a young boy saw this opportunity and attached himself to Lizanne. He waits until she's emotionally vulnerable and tricks her into harming herself. His goal is to have her join him in the spirit world. "Can you get rid of him?" Melanie begged. "I'm sorry, but I cannot. You're too late." "What do you mean?" "You waited too long. He has been attached to your daughter for so long that to get rid of him would mean getting rid of her. I am so sorry." A very special thank you to Lizanne from the Netherlands for sharing this story with me. What do you think the future holds for Lizanne? Tell me what you think in the comments below. Like this video if it gave you the chills, and don't forget to subscribe to Snarl.
Hey, I'm Sapphire. Want to hear something scary? Was talking to herself. She stopped in the doorway and looked into the room and screamed. Azura turned and hissed at her grandma like a rabid animal and crouched on all fours, growling deeply. Her grandmother ran out of the room and locked the door from the outside. "Jeannie, you have to call the priest now. There is a demon in this house." Jeannie is not a religious woman. She thought her mother was being a little dramatic, but nevertheless, she called a priest to come over to the house. He arrived the next morning and the grandmother explained what she saw. There was a demon with big bad wings and cloven hooves. Its skin was dark and scaly, and its hands had giant talons. Jeannie just snickered at this description. The grandmother unlocked the door, and there was Azura, crying hysterically. "Don't go! Don't go, please don't go! No, please don't go! Don't go! Don't go! Don't go! Please don't go!" The moment he saw this, the priest dropped his Bible and rosary and closed the door. "That's no demon. That's a mancha chico." "A what?" "It is a creature that is born from a demon and cursed without love. They seek out mortals to love them and attach themselves to those who show them kindness." Jeannie laughed. This was absolutely ridiculous. When they fall in love with a human, they truly care for them and keep them safe, but for a price. In return for their devotion, the Mancha Chico will gain possession of the human soul in the afterlife. We have to save her. The priest re-entered the bedroom and said a prayer. When he came out of the room, Jeannie saw Azura sleeping peacefully in her bed. A few days later, Jeannie was about to run some errands and Azura stopped her. "Don't leave." "But sweetie, I need to buy us something." "Please." Jeannie was a little freaked out by how sincere her daughter was, so she stayed home. Later that day, when they were watching the news, they learned that there was an active shooter at the nearby mall, the mall that Jeannie was going to go to. "Why did you make me stay home?"
Cheliso told me to tell you. He doesn't want me to be sad, so he will help me keep you safe.
There were multiple instances like this when Azura would tell her mother to avoid a certain area, only to later discover that it could have saved her life. And Jeannie wasn't the only one who was experiencing good luck. Azura's school bullies had stopped picking on her and began apologizing to her and giving her gifts. Azura was hit by a car on the sidewalk and flown into a gutter. but walked away without a scratch. Azura's little sister was diagnosed with a terrible skin disease, only to have it completely healed a few weeks later. To Jeannie, it was all just good luck. But according to Azura, this was all because of Cheliso, her demon. Years had gone by and Azura was now 15 years old. Jeannie found it a little odd that her daughter had never talked about any school crushes or shown any interest in dating, so she decided to talk to her daughter. You know, when I was your age, I couldn't stop talking about boys. Is there anyone you like at your school? You can tell me. I have Cheliso. He says I'm his one and only, and it'd be wrong to leave him when he's been so good to me. Hasn't he been good to us, Mama? Jeannie did not like that response. She thought that her daughter had finally grown out of this ridiculous phase and she couldn't stand these lies anymore. Enough, Azura, enough with Cheliso. He isn't real. I don't ever want to hear about Cheliso again. You understand? Jeannie stormed out of the room, leaving Azura in tears. After she had cooled down, Jeannie decided to apologize to her daughter. She entered her bedroom and froze. There was Azura, curled up on her bed, but in the lap of a giant demon. He looked just as Azura's grandmother had described years ago. Jeannie couldn't believe what she saw, but there he was. Cheliso was real. Azura is now 22 years old and only occasionally mentions Cheliso. And Jeannie will remind her that Cheliso plans to take her soul in the afterlife. And you're okay with that? Of course. Hasn't he been good to us, Mama? A very special thank you to Jeannie, Azura, and Cheliso, who, according to Azura, is a fan of Snarled.
Want Snarled, Slaytrix, or something scary merch? Visit our store by clicking the links beneath the video.
Hey, I'm Sapphire. Want to hear something scary?
Before we begin our next chapter, make sure you're subscribed to Snarled and have the bell turned on for notifications. Our next tale is about a girl who discovers a dark secret hiding behind her bedroom wall. It comes from the No Sleep subreddit by username The Dalek Emperor. We've always lived at 423 Stockholm Street, so there really wasn't ever a time that I didn't hear the creature. He'd been living in the room on the other side of my wall since I was born. When I was a very young child, I thought he was my friend. I would knock and he would bang back. I would giggle and he would mumble words to me that I couldn't understand. I thought he was there to protect me from my nightmares. But as I got older, I started to be afraid. Over time, I realized that he wasn't my friend at all. That's when the scratching, moaning, and sporadic banging began to scare me. When I was 8, I finally broke down and told my parents about the creature in my wall. I was terrified that he would come into my room one night and kill me. My mother rolled her eyes and told me it was mice. She never listened to me anyway. My father agreed with her that it was animals, but he hugged me and told me he would protect me and not to be scared. So from then on, whenever I'd hear the noises, I would scream for my father and he would come running into my room less than a minute later to see what the matter was. I would point at the wall and cower. My dad would smile, bang on the wall with his fist and say, "Quiet down in there or else." The noise would stop. I'd give my dad a teary smile and he would hug me. He was always my protector. I miss him so much now. One night when I was 16, I was awoken by an otherworldly, ear-splitting scream. It was so loud, so high, and so piercing that I screamed as well in terror. The scream ended abruptly. Then, a moment later, my dad came running in. "You heard it! How could you not hear it? You have to have heard it!" "Oh, sweetie." My dad sat at the end of my bed, his hair disheveled and a far-off look in his middle-of-the-night, bloodshot eyes. Of course I heard it, but it was just an owl, I'm sure of it. We've been seeing a few in the neighborhood. Oh, Dad, listen to the walls. Lindsay. Please, Dad. He sighed, but nodded, and we sat and listened for a while. I needed my dad to know the truth and to finally believe me. We were all in danger, but no more sounds came from the wall that night. I didn't hear him again after that, not for a long time. When the creature did return, I didn't really notice at first. After 16 years, it was simply white noise to me. A background soundtrack as familiar to me as my own face. I think that's what sealed our fates in the end. The noises were just so inherent to me that I failed to understand how unusual they really were, and had been all along. When I finally did realize what I was hearing, I'm ashamed to say I felt almost relieved. The haunt progressed in the same cycle it had all my life. First the groans, then the banging, then light, lazy tapping, and then finally the scratching. Always the scratching. I told my dad about the scratching and about how I thought the creature was trying to rip through the wall and into my room. My dad laughed and told me there were 3 inches of solid metal on the other side of my wall and that nothing could come through it. And he should know. He'd built the house himself. Since I was moving out in a year, I decided I had no choice but to just stick it out. After 16 years with him, what was 12 more months? I ignored the noises, even started to bang back. Whatever it was, if it could come through the wall, it would have done so years ago. The night the door was opened is the most vivid memory I have. I was at a friend's house when my mother called me and told me to come home immediately. This in itself was strange, as my mother barely even acknowledged me and never, ever called me. I drove the 5 miles back to my neighborhood, but I had a hard time getting in. I started to panic as I desperately weaved through all the media vans, police cars, and SWAT trucks. I had to park and walk the final 3 blocks to my house, tears rolling down my cheeks as I realized that my street was at the epicenter of it all. Because I knew. As soon as I saw my house, I realized it. My dad must be dead. It had finally gotten out and I had killed my dad. I took off at a dead run, then, ignoring all the voices yelling at me to stop. I dodged in between the vehicles, pushing past dozens of people, ran through the crime scene tape, and directly into my house. And there it was. Across from the living room, next to my bedroom, the hall closet stood with its door open. All the jackets and sweaters had been pulled out of it, and on the back wall I saw it. Another door. I stumbled into the closet, through the hidden door, and out into the room I'd always known was there. But it wasn't what I thought it'd be. The media called my dad the Skinner of Stockholm Street. And from what I saw in that room, it was a very fitting name. There were all sorts of knives, and there were metal devices stacked along one wall, at least 100 of them. There were 4 sets of manacles, a wall of chains, and rolls of duct tape. In the middle of the room, there was a flat table which was very clearly blood-soaked. But the worst of it was the wall. My wall. Every inch of it was covered in carvings. But the carvings weren't satanic or evil like I thought. The carvings were words. Jacob, I love you. Tell my father I forgive him. Sarah, I'm so sorry. Tell my daughters they were my world. According to the evidence file, there were over 60 of these messages, and I made myself read every single one. They haunt me every night. I had spent 10 years tormenting them, and they would now forever torment me. I live in a hospital now, and I can still hear the scratching. Every time I close my eyes, I hear it. I haven't really slept in a year. My doctor says if I don't sleep soon, I'll die. I spend my days watching news coverage of my father's trial, and I spend my nights staring at the walls. And though I try every night, I can never fall asleep. I always hear the scratching, and I always will. Like this video if it gave you the chills, and don't forget to subscribe to Snarled and our gaming channel, Slaytrix. Snarled and Slaytrix are partnered with Discord, a chat room that lets us talk to you, the audience, and play games with you. So on April 20th at 7 p.m. Pacific, we'll be having a game night where I and a few others will be playing a game with the audience and using the Discord to talk to you throughout the stream. The link
Nina had no idea what was going on, but she knew it could not be good. Hey, I'm Sapphire. Want to hear something scary? A lot of teenagers take up babysitting to earn money on the side. I was not one of those teenagers, nor did I ever want to be. There are just too many things that can go wrong. And stories like this one from 16-year-old Nina might make you rethink taking that job offer. Nina had been babysitting for the past 2 years, but nothing could prepare her for the events that took place fairly recently. One night, she was looking after a 1-year-old baby. She was on the phone with her Aunt Janice while watching the baby play with his toys in the corner. I'm gonna be here pretty late, but they're going to pay me extra, so it's worth it.
Okay, just be careful when you head back home. Some trees fell into the road during the storm, so there's a lot of accidents and traffic.
I have to go. The baby's crying.
All right, Nina, let me know if you need help with the baby tonight.
Nina went over to the baby to see what was wrong, but when she tried to lift him, he didn't move. It was like trying to pull magnets apart. He felt so heavy, like some force was keeping him on the ground. She tried to pick him up again when she heard,
"Don't touch me."
She stepped back. Did that just come from the baby's mouth? The baby's eyes had turned completely white. He started rolling on the ground, towards the wall, and then suddenly he was on the ceiling. Nina had no idea what was going on, but she knew it could not be good. She frantically called his parents, but they weren't answering. She ran into another room and called her aunt. Can you please come over? There's something wrong with this baby. I think he's possessed or something. Please, I'm freaking out.
Oh no, I'll be there as fast as I can, okay? Traffic's pretty bad, but I'll do my best. Just stay where you are and pray.
Minutes later, there was a knock on the front door. That was fast, Nina thought to herself. Aunt Janice was carrying a Bible, a rosary, and holy water. Lock all the windows and doors and stay in that room until I tell you to come out. Nina obeyed and locked herself in the room. A few minutes later, there was a knock. Nina, it's all right to come out now. Something didn't feel right. Is everything okay? How's the baby? The baby is just right. The demon got away very easily. It was Aunt Janice.
Hey, I'm on my way. Are you still okay?
Come out, niece. I want to see if you're safe. Aunt Janice, there's someone here that looks exactly like you.
How is that possible? I'm stuck in traffic. Oh my god. Nina, that isn't me. Get out of the house. Now! I'm calling 911.
Nina mustered up all her courage and pushed the door open, grabbed the baby, and ran outside the front door and hid in a bush. The baby was crying uncontrollably. She stayed in the bush until she saw the red and blue flashes of the police cars. Her aunt was right behind them. When the parents came home, Nina tried telling them what happened, but she wasn't making any sense. Possession? Demons? They didn't believe in those things, and they weren't sure what to make of Nina's story. They paid her the money they owed her, and Nina was pretty sure they'd never hire her again, which was completely fine with her. Thanks to Nina and Georgia for sharing this story with me. Like this video if it gave you the chills, and don't forget to subscribe to Snarled and our sister channels HissyFit and Slaytrix. If you or anyone you know have any unique paranormal experiences, send me a message on Instagram and I might feature your story. And if you dare to follow me, my links are in the description below. Until next time, sweet dreams.
I am. That's so stupid.
Hey, I'm Sapphire. Want to hear something scary? Gather around, good boys and girls. Daniel Millar, Emma Sweeney, and yes, you too, Richard Blackwell. Are you all warm and cozy? Good. Because now it's time for A Christmas Tale by Scott A. Johnson. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and deep in our bunker, my mom, dad, sister, and I did hunker. The streetlights were dark, no carolers sang, not even the blessings of old church bells rang. And beneath our beds, we all huddled tight and hoped he would pass by our house tonight. Everyone knows of jolly Saint Nick and the gifts that he brings on his single night trick, and the presents and baubles and candy and toys that he brings every Christmas to good girls and boys. But it wasn't the man with red suit and white beard whose annual Christmas visit we feared. Outside in the snow, we heard a loud howl, the crunching of ice, and an animal growl. I heard it sniff by our window pane, then a deep, throaty laugh, and saw red eyes like flame. My sister and I both stared, horrified, and prayed that the creature could not get inside. But a moment later, a thundering pound turned our door to splinters all over the ground. I screamed as the creature into our home came, this horrible beast, Von Krampus by name. He was massively tall, at least 7 feet, from the points of his horns to his hoof-shodden feet. Across his back, what I mistook for a coat was the shaggy long hair of a filthy dead goat. And I cried and I swallowed my terrified pangs at the sight of his wickedly razor-sharp fangs. His claw-fingered hands looked ready for pain. In one was a bullwhip, the other a chain. He growled and he sneered and laughed for a while. Then he pointed at us and said,
Naughty.
with a smile. My sister and I both shook with fear. What terrible things had we done this year? We tried to be good and thought we succeeded. We minded our manners, no punishment needed. We both made good grades. We neither one lied or cheated or stole. We had nothing to hide. But Krampus still came with his evil heart black to steal us away, stuff us in his sack, to take us away to his punishment cave, where all the bad children forever his slaves. We turned to our parents behind them to hide, but they both shook their heads and sadly stepped aside. You must face the music, my father lamented. Von Krampus then laughed, his expression demented. My sister and I hugged each other tight and prayed that someone could save us that night. And just when we gave up and all hope was gone, there came a loud clatter from out on the lawn. With a tinkle of bells, our spirits did lift. Von Krampus snarled, the air he did sniff. On the wind came the scent of holly and pine, of gingerbread cookies and holiday wine. In the doorway he stood in his suit of bright red. St. Nicholas came. We cried out and said, Save us, St. Nicholas, there's been a mistake. We've been good all year. You can't let him take. Hold on, not so fast. He raised his great hand. There is something happening you don't understand. Von Krampus did come, that much is true. But the demon of Christmas did not come for you. At the demon we stared, both of us confused. He had to be here for somebody, but who? Then I started to think, and all became clear. Who'd been the naughtiest of all that year? The more that I thought, the more I understood. We children were fine, but the parents, no good. But Krampus takes children, my father protested, and Santa's face twisted toward the man he detested. Christmas time is for children and gifts to be given. You took their innocence, and that can't be forgiven. You scared them into silence, their souls you did twist, and to top it off told them I didn't exist. For your lifelong naughtiness, the piper must be paid, and set Krampus upon them with a dismissive wave. The adults screamed as they went into a sack, and we cried until Santa patted my back. What's wrong? Asked St. Nicholas. I thought you'd be happy to be rid of those people who treated you crappy. We are, I sniffed, sincere as could be. But what is to become of my sister and me? St. Nicholas smiled and laughed loud and deep, as did Krampus, a sound that still haunts my sleep. Why, you'll come with me, he said with great joy. I have great use for a good girl and boy. You'll come to my workshop and work with my elves. I promise that you will enjoy yourselves. I'll teach you my secrets, my toy-making ways, and then you'll take over when I've ended my days. But, said my sister, what about him? Won't Krampus be lonely? She scratched his chin. I wish to thank him, and I know the way. I will go with him and be his protege. And so, from Kris Kringle, I learned to make toys, and my sister to torture naughty girls and boys. And every evening from that point thereafter, my dreams were full of parent screams and my sister's laughter. And so this ends our happy Christmas story. If you're nice and not naughty, you've no need to worry. But if your heart's full of coal and you're an evil mister, try to hide, but you'll soon meet Krampus and my sister. If you liked this story, check out creepylittlebastard.com for more from Scott. Like this video if it gave you the chills, and don't forget to subscribe to Snarled and our sister channels Hissy Fit and Slay Tricks. If you or anyone you know, from the beginning, Mitchell had a weird feeling about her. Hey, I'm Sapphire. Want to hear something scary? As we've learned from Rachel's Dark 5, some people can be real monsters. In this next chapter, Mitchell tells us about his close encounter with a killer. When Mitchell was about 12 years old, his mom Susan was set up on a blind date with a woman named Elizabeth. It went pretty well, so Susan introduced her to Mitchell. From the beginning, Mitchell had a weird feeling about her. It felt like she didn't quite know how to interact with children, so she was always a bit distant and cold. Meanwhile, she was showering Susan with gifts and acting pretty clingy. A week after Susan and Elizabeth started dating, the three of them went to Susan's friend's wedding. Elizabeth wore a baggy tie-dye shirt and basketball shorts, a very odd choice for a formal occasion. When they got there, Mitchell's eyes grew at the sight of all the food. His eyes landed on the platters of shrimp, but Susan reeled him back into reality. Don't eat any of the seafood. It was cooked with peanut oil. Mitchell sighed in disappointment. He loved shrimp, but was allergic to peanuts. Later in the evening, Elizabeth approached Mitchell at the table, holding a plate of shrimp and smiling widely.
Look, a guest brought some seafood cooked without peanut oil. Isn't that lucky? Your mom asked me to bring this to you. Enjoy!
She placed the plate in front of Mitchell and walked away. Mitchell looked around to see if he could spot his mom and get her nod of approval, but he couldn't see her. Being a young kid, he didn't overthink it and ate a shrimp. It was just as delicious as he had hoped it would be. So he ate another, and another, until his throat swelled up and couldn't swallow anymore. Susan spotted Mitchell across the room, covered in hives and struggling to breathe, and she quickly called an ambulance. Once Mitchell was okay and everything had calmed down, Susan scolded him. "I told you not to eat the seafood. Why didn't you listen to me?"
It was Elizabeth. She said it didn't have peanut oil. She said you told her to give it to me.
Susan looked over at Elizabeth.
Oh, poor kid. He's delusional from the medication.
A week later, Susan called things off with Elizabeth. She believed Mitchell when he told her that Elizabeth had tricked him, and she couldn't stand the thought of being with someone who would intentionally cause harm to her child. Just to be safe, they changed their number so Elizabeth couldn't get a hold of them. Years had passed and they had forgotten about Elizabeth. Until this past summer, when they turned on the news.
Her job was to care for the elderly and comfort the ill, but former nurse Elizabeth Wetlaufer is now one of Canada's worst serial killers.
The woman they called Beth was charged today with 8 counts of first-degree murder.
4 counts of attempted murder and 2 counts of aggravated assault.
She had killed their loved ones.
All by way of insulin overdoses.
In a chilling confession to police, Wetlaufer claimed they were annoying.
Wetlaufer was found guilty of professional misconduct.
Make sure that this woman gets the justice she deserves because she had no right to do what she did.
I think she's sick. Literally sick.
Oh my God. Thank you to Mitchell in Canada for sharing this horrifying experience with me. Like this video if it gave you the chills, and don't forget to subscribe to Snarled and our sister channels. Hey, I'm Sapphire. Want to hear something scary? Our next set of stories is about duality, light and darkness, good and evil, existing together. Stories that shine a light on the darkness of humanity. This first chapter is a classic urban legend about 2 roommates in college. Lisa and Amber were seniors living in
Well, isn't this what you've all come to expect from me now anyways these days? Just me sitting in front of a green screen, making stupid songs about fidget spinners, nooses, and knives. Or pretty much making videos about anything I can think of to distract me from the fact that I've been procrastinating releasing my new album, which I've been promising to you all for over a year now. What the fuck are you doing? You're supposed to be working on an album, you fuck. Rusty, I'd love if you stopped making this cancer content and kept working on the new album and good content. Fuck knife game songs. I'm still waiting for your next album release. Where is your new album, asshole? Hey, why can't you make more of your music? Your actual music, like from the Crowley album. Where the fuck is the album? I mean, I get it. It's been 2 years since I released Crowley, and you're all probably eager for me to start putting out some more quality music. The truth is, Rusty Cage Volume 4 is already complete. It's done. In fact, the physical copies are packed away in that box right over there. But, well, those days of releasing songs that I actually put effort into are over. It just takes way too much work and time to write and record that kind of music. And lately, I've been hearing a little voice deep down within me telling me that I shouldn't open that box, that I should never release my new album, but instead rebrand myself as a rubber chicken musician. Open the box. No, I can't.
Release the new album.
I mustn't. I'm sorry, Woodsworth.
More chicken music.
Yes, master. As you command. I'll just upload the video to Twitter, and there. That should be enough to satisfy them. What the fuck is this stupid shit? Release your new album, you cuck. You are a shame to the glorious nation of Japan. Super Tokyo, man. Even you? Well, I guess it couldn't hurt to just take a quick peek inside. The nights are growing longer now when I lift your name on high, burning every wick from end to end. This is the kind of music that I should be making. I couldn't give away my love or spend my time with anybody else, but oh, sometimes I believe I can make the change. Oh Lord, are you feeling the same? Oh God, I'm sorry, master. Take the knife.
Do it, Rusty. Take the knife.
Do it. Do it.
Kill the chicken.
Kill the fucking chicken. Do it. Do it. Woodsworth, open the box! There isn't any God, and when you die, you're just dead. In heaven's just a fairy tale that puts you to bed. Sometimes I think about the chance that I'm wrong, and then I close my eyes and just remember this song. I said there isn't any God, and when you die, you're just dead. In heaven's just a fairy tale to put you to bed. There ain't nobody watching us, cause nobody cares. And in the end, we're living all alone. The horror. The horror. Oh man, I might be stoking the wrong fire with this one. This just might be the video that finally gets me killed. I mean, I've made content in the past that have gotten people pissed at me. Sure, I've gotten my fair share of death threats. That's just a part of the game. But this time, I could very well be fucking with the wrong people. Crazy people. Actual insane people who might watch this video and take it upon themselves to find me in the street and finally put a bullet in my head. I mean, hell, it happened to John Lennon, but fuck it. I'm no John Lennon, but I did make a song called We're the Gang Stalkers, which I kinda knew would trigger a dedicated and fanatical subculture of loonies who have completely lost touch with reality. If you don't know what a gang stalker is, then you're probably like most sane people. But I'll give you a brief summary to help you understand the mental roller coaster ride we're about to embark on. Let's just read a few definitions from one of the internet's most reliable sources, Urban Dictionary. Gang stalking is really a covert government or police investigation. It's similar to COINTELPRO or Red Squads. It's being used on a lot of innocent people to ruin them and make them look crazy. A psychological attack that can completely destroy a person's life while leaving little to no evidence to incriminate the perpetrators. The goal is to sensitize the target to a stimuli, isolate the target, make them destitute. The secondary goal seems to be to make the target homeless, jobless, give them a breakdown, and the primary goals seem to be to drive the target to suicide. Okay, so the idea is that gang stalking is a secret, unseen organization of gang stalkers, whose goal it is to follow, monitor, and harass targeted individuals in order to make them seem crazy and ruin their lives. Well, mob harassment is certainly not an unknown phenomenon. But one thing that I've noticed about people who believe that they're being gang stalked particularly is that they are all fucking nuts. Just YouTube search videos of people getting gang stalked and you'll see hours of footage of these so-called targeted individuals filming random people on streets or in buses and coming to the conclusion that these innocent civilians going about their normal day are actually gang stalking government agents set out to monitor specific targeted individuals, all while harassing them with subtle stimuli like secret hand signs, honking their horn, or even driving around in red cars. Let's see what this targeted individual has to say when she confronts her gang stalker, who just so happens to be the local mailman.
Stop stalking me, right? Don't ever stalk me again.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
About what?
Don't ever stalk me again.
Who's stalking you about
you. Laugh some more. Do it.
You're crazy.
Is that right?
I have no idea who you are, lady. So, you know, you're dreaming, you think I'm stalking you. Good luck with that.
Well, now that you're familiar with gang stalking, let's continue. So after I released my album Gang Stalkers, I found a 45-minute Google Hangout video called Satanist Rusty Cage Makes Album Titled Gang Stalkers. Satanist? Satanist? Who, me? Rusty Cage? A Satanist? I have always said, time and time again, that I am a proud Muslim. Praise Allah. And going through this guy's channel, a very clear theme seems to be present in all of his videos. That, of course, is gang stalking and the supernatural. Demonic harassment, aka gang stalking. Gang stalking is supernatural. Multi-dimensional gang stalking. Witchcraft and gang stalking. And, of course, Satanist Rusty Cage makes an album titled Gang Stalkers.
Got an interesting program tonight. We're not really sure where it will go.
Be interesting.
But
well, I'm gonna need a little bit of help reacting to this one.
We just pray in the name of Jesus Christ. We plead the blood of Jesus
Praise
over this
Jesus.
connection.
you know, I research gang stalking videos a lot, and I kind of just stumbled upon this song today from this album. It's titled Gang Stalkers, and the title song, the first song on the track, is We're the Gang Stalkers.
Now we're good.
But it's weird. Prepare yourselves. It's a weird little exploration
really?
we're going to be doing tonight.
The song is weird. The song is weird, not the fact that you're sitting in a bedroom wearing a ski mask. Okay, whatever you say. Ah, I can't. Well then, let's just get a little weird.
You know, we're going to kind of explore someone who is kind of a self-proclaimed Satanist.
I will have you know that I am a devout Scientologist, sir.
Foolish weak child. You are nothing but a pawn in Lord Satan's army. Now shut up and drink more whiskey.
Yes, sir.
Together, it kind of ties in the Satanists with the gang stalkers.
There appears to be a lot of lore about gang stalking, so let's just start keeping track. Let's see. Gang stalkers are tied to Satanists.
Satanists.
Got it.
There does seem to be knowledge within practitioners of the magic.
Oh, it's true. One of the major benefits of joining the Gang Stalkers is that you get magical powers. Don't believe me? Just watch.
We're the Gang Stalkers, buddy, and we're everywhere. When you see a Gang Stalker, then you better beware. We follow you around in our bright red cars. We're all Gang Stalkers, and we know where you are.
It's pretty bizarre. I mean, it's pretty bizarre.
super bizarre.
I mean, gang stalking's a pretty fringe side topic as it is.
Yeah,
Better yet,
it's
you
only
know,
crazy.
people who would want to make music about it.
Listen, I'll be honest. I didn't want to make this song. I was forced to do it by the gang stalking organization. I didn't have a choice. They told me if I didn't play ball and join their